An error occurred on LinkedIn. Good morning, everyone. I'm Ludy Kopkina with GAI Insights. Welcome to AI News. I'm reading that there are errors in our transmissions. I'm not sure what's happening, but hopefully you can all hear us and we still are on. So welcome to the Daily AI News, where we rate the news essential, important, and optional, and help you identify trends and use cases that are helpful to you and minimize risk in your own projects. We have, so the articles that we will be reviewing are on our website. It's gaiinsights.com/articles. And we'll ask our folks here, our analysts, to review the article and talk about the substance of it briefly when they talk about it. Okay, welcome everyone. Today we have a full house, John, Paul, Adam, and Tim reviewing the articles. Let's start with the first article. This is from Google. It's a big introduction of Gemini 2.0, sort of preview of the agentic era. They've put together the Gemini 2.0 features, and several prototypes to actually experiment of what this level of LLMs can do for the agents and build more complexity into them. Okay, what do you think about this, Tim?
I think this is, I guess I was important on this. I was, it's, I need a miracle every day. Isn't that the John and my friend John Perry Barlow's song about miracles every day? So this is an incrementally better version of a large model. It has new kinds of features, so they've been previewed before. It has this Astra only on Android devices that helps you wander around and use it live. It has a code helper. It has a sort of a computer use thing that watches you do things on the computer and can help you. So again, to a certain extent, Google is playing catch up. It's fantastic, actually, when you watch it. It's quite a bit of features put together, quite a capable model, performing better on all the benchmarks, but actually an incremental improvement over everything that they had and really catch up to most of the other models. It is Google. It's still the largest search company in the world by far. So I would definitely give this a read. So I rank it important.
Okay.
But if you're a Google shop, maybe essential. If you're not a Google shop, important.
Okay. I know there's a lot of discussion on LinkedIn and the like about Gemini 2.0. Adam, what did you glimpse into it since you had more time?
I haven't had a chance to play with Gemini, but I thought this was essential news. I mean, this is one of the biggest players out there, and what they're looking at doing in terms of integrating this intelligence, first of all, which is we'll get back to Flash, right? Because this is Flash, which is their speed demon. But it's the capability of direct integration with Google Search, and what they're going to be able to start rolling out from there is I don't know. It's a pretty strong and compelling case for them. The other thing I saw was this Project Mariner, right? So this can understand forms, codes, images, like it has all of the vision systems for interpreting what's on your screen and browsing the internet like a human would. So like your assistant that's doing the task for you, that's what you want the agent to do. But it says that it can type, scroll, click links all while you're watching it. So you sort of become the co-pilot, I guess, in this case, and you're watching Gemini actually go through the action. So that computer use capability is probably what tipped me over. Like, I know it's not quite here. It is generally available now, and the full rollout's just going to be around the corner in January. So I guess the other thing that I wanted to mention was about Flash, right? And so Flash is their small model, which typically would be less powerful, like GPT Mini, for example, but this is 2.0 Flash, and it's more powerful than 1.5 Pro was. So it's similar to what we saw when Claude came out with Sonnet 3.5, and their middle model was more powerful than the big one at 3.0. But imagine what 2.0 Pro is going to be like, right? If this one's already outperforming the previous models. I do hear your point as well, Tim, that not all of this is out yet, and it's a lot of stuff that's already been announced that's just starting to come out, and it is incremental gains really over what they've done before. So I think Tim swayed me to be on the fence from hands down, essentially.
Okay, well, let's ask John and Paul. What do you guys think?
I am not on the fence. I am essential, baby. Come on. This Gemini coming out with agentic stuff that, a lot of it's already out there, works, more to come behind. They have, with the possible exception of Facebook and Microsoft, the greatest distribution on this stuff. They've got the most to win and lose, in terms of their, search revenue and so forth. I think this is absolutely essential. And
I was also
it's kind of mind blowing. My goodness. And by the way, if you hear noise in the background, it's my granddaughter's 6th birthday. We're having a little bit of a morning birthday party here. So,
I was also essential because every leader should know about it. This is in advance. Granted, those prototypes are yet open to developers, but they are pretty massive in terms of their potential and integration with the rest of the platforms. The integration is what hit me, that they are going for like the whole platform, 9 yards. Paul, what do you think?
I was essential as well for 2 reasons. One is that we do know companies. There's one publicly traded company we're working with that's got 6,000 employees, and they've got Gemini rolled out to 1,000 already. So this is obviously essential for them. I think it's also really important for the AI leader to understand just the breathtaking escalation of the war with the cloud. We saw AWS 2 or 3 weeks ago. We've got the 12 days of open AI. We've seen AI in Apple. Now we've got Ignite a week ago or so, Microsoft, and now we've got more stuff from Google. So it's just breathtaking expansion again.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, essential it is. Let's go next. Ankash has joined us. Ankash, if you can share the next article, please. Great.
Sure, Luda. So the next one comes from ABB and Microsoft. ABB has launched a Genix Copilot with Microsoft.
Yeah, an interesting use case in energy, oil, and the like. Great capabilities that ABB put together. Paul, what do you think?
It's a Microsoft. They didn't have that many details, but if you scroll down a little more, they do have a screenshot of some of the suggestions on possible culprits of. Just scroll down a little more. On it, right there on the right, are using GenAI to suggest possible visual cues. But overall, this is pretty vanilla, straight up the kind of common things. So I had it as optional.
Yeah, I had it as optional as well. But it's interesting. Back to our wins framework, I think these folks are kind of holding a lever. If you think about, they have certain things that are digitized that are incredibly important. I mean, ABB is it's over $30 billion company. Huge in industrial electrification. I just again, I continue to be amazed at the speed with which these big complex enterprises are actually using AI in their product or in their service already. I mean, this whole generative wave only started in November 2022. It's just a blink ago.
Yeah, if they offered more impact in numbers and of impact, I would have certainly put it as important. Yeah. Because the impact of these, if you scroll down, Ankash, a little bit, they talk about the use cases that they're after. The asset performance management copilot, the assistant copilot troubleshooting and maintenance of devices on deployed, and sustainability insights. And it's all of those are very impactful for their customers. So, I mean, I'm tempted to go important on this one, but it lacks the detail.
Yeah, I think this is even in your wins framework, John. I have to say, I think this is underrated in value. I worked on the B2 many years ago, on an object-oriented system to make maintenance possible, because those systems are so complicated that changing a light bulb in the cockpit was quite something. And of course, you couldn't mess with anything because that plane couldn't fly by itself, right? It was actually non-aerodynamic. So if you made a mistake, it was fatal. And I think the mismatch, and the average maintenance person had, if you were lucky, a high school education. So we've talked before about one of the biggest assets of Gen AI is it makes the newbies, let's call them, or the naive users much better. Maybe doesn't help the skilled users quite as much, but helps the non-skilled users quite a lot. And in manufacturing of complex machinery and maintenance of complex machinery, I think this is an enormous issue and growing, where you've got just a tremendous mismatch between the capabilities and knowledge of the maintainers and the complexity of the machinery. Yeah. So this is a big one for me. Again, this mediation, any kind of semantic mediation is a sweet spot for this stuff, and I think this is one of them. I would still rank this optional myself. I agree, it's just too loosey-goosey and not enough detail, but I think this area of complex machinery, installation, maintenance, construction is a big one.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
No mentions no multilingual capability in the article. I gotta believe that ABB would build this multilingual. It's just such a no-brainer.
Yeah. Okay. Optional it is. Let's proceed. Ankash?
Okay, the next one comes from OpenAI. So OpenAI, in their 12 day of releases, on the 4th day, they have expanded ChatGPT Canvas to all users.
Yes. Adam, what do you think?
I think this is probably optional news. Canvas is cool. It's amazing that they've opened it up for everyone, that they aren't forcing people to pay anymore for it. Probably the biggest news in here, along with Canvas being available for all, is that it now can actually, it has a run button, and if you have Python code, I should explain. So the Canvas is basically a new interface with ChatGPT, where on the left-hand side, you have a small bar of navigation, and the right-hand side is a document that you can co-edit with ChatGPT. So you can go in and actually modify the lines of code or modify the lines of prose, or you can tell ChatGPT the changes, and rather than having to use the tokens and the time to output the whole thing again, it will selectively just modify the parts that are necessary. You can tell it to make it shorter or longer, all the common things you could do, but to have that workspace where you're working with sort of co-working with the agent is a really nice feature. And what they've added here is that you can now run the Python code and see the output. So I was testing it, and like there are free public APIs where you can put in a location and it'll get you the weather, right? And so I just said, let's make a little weather app, that goes and polls and gets the weather for Melbourne. And then I could hit run and the Python code would execute, and it's actually calling out to the internet and, returning the results. So it's a step towards the Anthropic Claude artifact, but an incremental step, and they're still, frankly, way behind in this game. So probably optional news.
Optional. Anybody wants to move it up? John, Paul, Tim?
No, optional. I agree. Playing catch up.
Big optional, yeah. It's a day 4, but it's so far it's underwhelming what OpenAI is doing with their 12-day announcements.
Underwhelming. They only released Sora.
They only released Sora, and
yeah.
Well, Sora's the response to Sora has been pretty underwhelming. I don't know.
Yeah, too, right. Okay, because there's so many good competitors now out there. All right, let's put it as optional and let's proceed. Next one, Ankash, please.
The next one from Semi-Analysis, it talks about multiple things, including scaling laws, Owen Pro architecture, reasoning training infrastructure, and Claude 3.5 Opus failure.
Yeah, so it essentially says if there are people who are thinking that inference is not going to be, or the models are not going to be improved, they're wrong. And this is the set of various things that will make you wrong. What did you think about this, John?
Yeah, I thought I gave it an important. It's an interesting argument. I mean, it's I like the semi-analysis folks. They're pretty, detailed, and this goes through just an enormous number of ways that we'll be able to improve models and capabilities. And it starts with the analogy back to Moore's law, where basically as we hit difficult interference at, I think, about the 4 and 5 nanometer level, that we started to go to different kinds of architectures. And one of our announcements today also, and one of our articles today also talked about, IBM's optical connectors among chips. That would be a dimension that you improve, overall overall performance of the device with, improved architecture. It's a bit of red herring. They basically say, hey, look, we may not get unbelievable improvement by scaling the pre-training activity, but there's zillions of dimensions that we can improve these models. And then at the very end, they come back and say, but remember, post-training is very compute intensive. So we hope that, people will continue to improve training. I put it as important because it's a lovely, I think, landscape description of all the different ways that models are getting improved. I do think the title's a bit of a red herring, but that's fine.
It's a little technical and gets really tedious at the end. So I was between optional and important and ended up with optional. What do you think, Tim and Adam?
I think it's important. I think, to John's point, it's important for leaders to at least have this level of depth. I don't think you can just surf over all this stuff. And this is a good survey. So you'll hit every term that's important in the current landscape. And they're pretty reasonable about the approaches that are being taken right now. So I think it's good for that. I think you have to have a skeptical eye. Again, this is just more, to me, maybe I've got confirmation bias, evidence of how all these products basically were released and put together with baling wire and spit, as we used to say. And so you've got like 18 different ways that are all ad hoc, by the way. There is no theory behind any of this. And you can see what happens. This is the difference between engineering and science. Science hates ad hoc and really wants to have theory and scale. Engineering doesn't give a crap. It just says, if I can make it work and I can make it work better, that's what counts. And so this is engineering. It's good engineering, but it's engineering without theory. And so there will be lots of breakthroughs, I think. And the thing to keep in mind is this doesn't address the ones we don't know about. So, our poster child for this is liquid AI and, algorithmic advancements, I think, John, as you call them. So, but I still think this is an important article for folks to read to get a good survey of what's going on today.
Yeah, it is very in the method they describe. They're quite comprehensive about it. Adam, okay with important?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, great. Important.
I think if nothing else, if they come away being able to know the difference between training time compute and test time compute, that would probably be a win.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. All right. So let's go important on this one, and let's proceed to the next one. Ankaj, please.
Next one comes from IBM. So IBM has achieved an optics breakthrough, which brings the speed of light to GenAI.
That's a very interesting one, talking about, like John mentioned, talking about various ways you could get the speed of inference increased. And here's the hardwares and, chips innovation, right? What do you think about it, Tim? You are very much into it.
Yeah, I think I think this is a sleeper and could actually have enormous impact, but I'd still give this an optional because at the level of the AI leader, it is like a research discovery of a new drug. It's 10 years probably before this really starts to change the landscape, maybe 5. But it could really change the landscape because most people don't understand how much the bottleneck is actually not processor speed or processor architecture, but in fact, straightforward, get me the data off the memory chip and onto the processor and back. And this is going to improve that by a factor, not by an order of magnitude, but they're thinking 5x. So 5x performance, when you think of the number of operations per second, it's just mind-boggling. It's hard for people to understand the scale of operations. But if you improve NVIDIA's ability to get at external data by 5x, you'll have quite an impact on the scale that they can achieve with their computations. The other thing is, there was one of the articles today mentioned this somewhere, I thought, or maybe another article I read, that it's going to be, maybe it was a scaling article just prior to this, that you're not going to be able to get all of what you need in one data center anymore. And because just the scale of things, again, has to go up higher. So there's going to have to be some way of connecting multiple data centers together or making the data center bigger, but you still have the problem of space, even at the speed of light, more than a few hundred feet starts to be material. And so this could have this could be a sleeper thing that a few years from now we could look back at and say, wow, that just really changed everything. But it's something that's going to be invisible to most people because it'll have to be embedded in the underlying infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm tempted to actually go important for those reasons, Tim, you described, that leaders need to have ammunition to say that there are various things that are happening that would impact the inference and dramatically, right? They might not be today, but they are happening. So I would suggest maybe we consider important, but I understand the reasoning for optional. John, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm more in the optional camp just because it's going to take a while for this to show into the AI leader. Look, it's also got incredible power implications, right? I mean,
Yeah,
right. That's the other thing, the power
and energy. Yeah, and energy.
Yeah, both in terms of running it and cooling it. Yeah, I mean, I think I was happy to see IBM, on their game here in terms of semiconductor creation. I think for anybody who follows the semiconductor field, packaging and connectivity are huge issues, right? I mean, part of the reason the Blackwell chip was taking time is that, as I understand it, the communication bus between the two main processors was having a problem, and
the hardest thing these days in most advanced semiconductor design is the communications issues.
Yeah, and so I mean they're right in the middle of it, but I gave it an optional on this one for our AI leader because I agree with Tim. It's going to be
It'll take some time.
2-3 cycles. So if you're 18 months a cycle on semiconductors, it's going to be 3 years, 4 years before it hits, something like that.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Adam, okay with optional?
Yep. Sure
Okay,
am.
optional it is. Let's proceed. Ankash, please.
Okay, the last one that we have for today comes from Yelp. Yelp has released new AI-powered discovery and connection features.
Yeah, 20 plus features, both on the consumer side and some quite personalization features on the company side and vendors side. What did you think about this, Adam?
Luda, before the call, I was on the fence between optional and important, and I think I'm going to start leaning towards important as I hear you listing how many. So there's a lot in here, as you said. So there's AI-powered review insights. So if, let's say, 1,000 people have written reviews, an LLM or an agent will now, as you're going and looking at, say, a restaurant, it's intelligently organizing themes across those reviews. So if a lot of people talked about the ambiance, it'll reflect what sort of the ambiance sentiment was across those. So some pretty neat little features. The reality is Yelp is actually still the second largest search for this type of review thing behind Google, but they're at like 6% market share as the number two, and then 3 and 4 are at 3%. So it's significant. It's still a fairly small amount of the market, but it I guess bodes well for more and more of these capabilities getting into the hands of end consumers, and maybe Google will follow suit and put similar capabilities into their models. So I could go either way. What's our Gen AI leader going to do with this? I'm not sure. Yeah.
Well, I was thinking personalization, a sort of example of where you put AI capabilities to use in your processes. So great to see that Nova, agrees with this. Great features and
I
data
think that,
privacy they also addressed, I think, in there. Yeah.
yeah, I was thinking it important. Look, if you're in any of these markets, let's say you're in the quick service restaurant or something like that, you got to pay attention to this. This is part of the SEO bloodbath. I understand. I hear you're Adam about 6%, but for certain segments, I bet it's a big part, like restaurants and so forth. I bet it's way more than 6%. So yeah, I get it important. And I think the other thing is that the whole notion of the how you're going to distill information you already have in your organization into new products and services for your customers, I think is an important trend. And back to our wins framework, it's more confirmation that our prediction about, organizations in the crucible are going to transform themselves. We said 3 to 5 years. I think we might have been too generous with the time.
Yeah. Tim, okay with important?
I am. Yeah. I mean, at one level, it's just a product announcement and a catch-up one at that. But to John's point and to others' points, this is a well-known brand. And this is just confirmation that, again, for the AI leader, this is, okay, every major software and SaaS player is doing this, starting with SAP and Salesforce, now getting to the consumer apps like Yelp. Everybody is embedding this stuff throughout their product. And so, yeah, it's time to wake up and smell the coffee, folks.
Yeah. Okay. Let's put it as important. They talk about privacy to the prior person's question in the article. I think they put the guardrails in there. Okay, so let's bring up the scorecard. All right, and we have 1 essential, 2 importance, and 3 optionals today. Great. So thank you all for listeners for participating. Really appreciate it. Thanks, Tim, joining us today. Always great to have you. And thanks, everyone. This was a great discussion. Thank you, and we'll see you tomorrow.